So, have you ever wondered how you would hold up under torture? So let's talk about the start of the process of preparing for tyranny, getting ready now for being arrested by the regime. Solzhenitsyn's famous work, The Gulag Archipelago, is a history of really crazy time in which people were being arrested, left, right, and center. They were tortured, interrogated, sent off to the gulag slave camps. And why? Really for nothing, on the basis of the most trivial and flimsy charges possible. Often, they'd be arrested on the basis of false charges made by friends or enemies or families or colleagues. And in the first volume, Solzhenitsyn spends about 40 pages recounting the methods used by the Cheka, the Soviet secret police, to extract such false confessions and denunciations, which were often made in some deluded hope that they would help the accuser himself or his loved ones. And that's really what we're going to get into, because they make these false confessions, to save their lives or to save the lives of their loved ones. So, after the grueling accounts that he gives in the Gulag Archipelago, Solzhenitsyn asks this question. He says, so what is the answer? How can you stand your ground when you are weak and sensitive to pain, when people you love are still alive, when you are unprepared? What do you need to make you stronger than the interrogator and the whole trap? And that's the million-dollar question. He at once gives us the answer. First, he says that we should try to avoid getting into that situation to begin with. Okay. We should be fighting against the emergence of the regime, and once it emerges, we should not allow ourselves to be arrested. Solzhenitsyn gives haunting accounts of a man who was nearly arrested one day, but he escaped. But then he stayed in his own hometown rather than flying away or running away, and he was arrested the next day. When that day comes, we should refuse to go quietly. He gives another example of the secret police being hampered by a woman who started making a massive scene when they tried to arrest her. But once they've got us, once they've arrested us, then what? So I'm going to give you his answer in full, and then we'll break it down. And it's going to sound brutal, I know, but this is what Solzhenitsyn said. From the moment you go to prison, you must put your cozy past firmly behind you. At the threshold, you must say to yourself, quote, my life is over. A little early to be sure, but there's nothing to be done about it. I shall never return to freedom. I am condemned to die. Now or a little later, but later on, in truth, it will be even harder. And so the sooner the better. I no longer have any property whatsoever. For me, those I love have died, and for them I have died. From today on, my body is useless and alien to me. Only my spirit and conscience remain precious and important to me. Confronted by a prisoner like that, the interrogator will tremble, he says. Only the man who has renounced everything can win that victory. So this is one of the most profound passages in all of modern literature, and it contains so much truth. So let's start at the very top. He says that once we are in prison, we have to put our cozy past firmly behind us. We must give up all personal petty hopes that we will save our own skins and return to the outside world. So we all know that hope is a virtue, but that's when it's applied to our eternal reward in heaven. It's very misleading to apply this to everyday things like a return to liberty, comfort, to our loved ones. We must not despair of our salvation or of the defeat of this wicked rebellion against both God and his creatures. But once we have fallen into the gears of the machine, let's say, our only hope is to stop this kind of worldly hoping. We must decide that we will only do what is right, and that we will do nothing that is wrong and discount all the hopes of escape through some kind of good behavior for the guards, confessions, or doing whatever we have to do to get freedom. Our only hope, once we have reached that stage, is to stop hoping in worldly things and to wait, all the while trying, with God's grace, to make ourselves into a little piece of unbreakable iron. One way to do this is to ask ourselves, why would we even want to be free? Why would we want to live in the outside world of freedom if it becomes freedom of tyranny, vaccine mandates, denial of Christ? It would be better to have internal spiritual, mental freedom in a slave labor camp than to pay the price of internal spiritual, mental slavery in the free world of the regime. It really seems that Solzhenitsyn reached a point of realizing that the freedom of the Soviet Union outside the camps, which was built on the progressive destruction of the integrity of its citizens, was a greater hell than the gulag itself. And really, why would we want to live freely in the monstrous regime which the globalists, technocrats, and servants of Satan are seeking to build? Solzhenitsyn, for example, returned himself, when he was released, to a marriage in which he and his wife no longer knew each other, and this marriage actually broke down. However, he also lived for many decades more and under reasonably good conditions, the kind that we've spent in most of our lives. And so he was able to write and inspire us today. But in any case, the crucial reason that he managed to return to the world is that, in a certain sense, he had stopped hoping that he would return to the world. So, how do we stop hoping without giving in to despair? And what does it mean in practice? Like Solzhenitsyn said, it is to consider ourselves already dead.